Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laser Talk. Okay, I'm a little delayed because I went to get a cup of water for myself. I'm still feeling a little under the weather, but I did as much as I can. All right, let's get started. Since Trump took office, geopolitics have shifted dramatically, with alliances reshaped and rivalries redefined at an alarming pace. Yet the CCP has remained relatively low-key, or at least on the surface. Today, I want to give you an update on US-China relations and share some insight into the CCP's ongoing two sessions, which is its biggest political event, one of the biggest political events of the year. So let's first talk about Sino-US relations. Recently, Trump's State Department took an explicitly anti-CCP stance, changing diplomatic language to separate the Chinese people from the CCP, and stripping Xi Jinping of his president title in official discourse. So according to a document obtained by Voice of America, the US has drawn a clear distinction between the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese people. In a recently issued terminology guidance document, Secretary of State Marco Rubio instructed US embassies and consulates to use more specific descriptive terms instead of the adjective Chinese, when it might imply a negative connotation toward the Chinese people, culture, or language. But before issuing these latest instruction, I want to say that the State Department had already replaced the term People's Republic of China, PRC. I have to take a sip of water. Okay, feel better. So the State Department has already removed the term People's Republic of China, PRC, from its website and simply refers to the country as China. So this new document instructs the State Department to use CCP when discussing government actions in public speeches or press releases, recognizing the CCP's ultimate authority over China's political, economic, military, and many other decisions. And when describing China's malign activities, the document advises against using the word Chinese as an adjective to prevent the impression that the US government is blaming the Chinese people for CCP's actions. The document also commends avoid calling Xi Jinping the president of China. Instead, he should be referred to as the Communist Party's general secretary. Additionally, American diplomats are advised to avoid using expressions from the Biden administration such as invest, align, compete, or responsibly managing the relationship when describing US-China relations. So these are major changes. Some experts took this as that the US government is preparing for the post-CCP era, because they say that the US government did the same thing right before the former Soviet Union disintegrated. They made the clear distinction back then. So people are saying that maybe the US government is preparing for the disintegration of the CCP. But anyways, so as a result, so consequently, the Chinese officials, reacted. The spokesman of the foreign ministry reacted by calling this expressing the Chinese firm opposition. And then this week, Trump imposed tariff on China and an incremental of 10% every month. I mean, it looks like, since he took office, there was 10% new tariff in February, and this month there's another 10%. So some people are saying that maybe he will impose his 60% tariff incrementally at 10% every month. It will be a 10% new tariff monthly until the CCP addresses the problem, or until the 60% tariff is reached. So this is the second 10% additional tariff. And in response, a spokesperson from the Chinese Foreign Ministry declared on March 4th by saying that if the US wants war, whether it's a tariff war, a trade war, or any other form of war, we are prepared to fight to the end. The spokesman's words, fighting to the end, have gone viral. Global media were shocked by CCP's provocative tone, as the wording evoked Cold War era confrontation rather than trade disputes. So Beijing, and also in retaliation, Beijing also announced several measures, including a 10 to 15% tariff increase on a range of US agricultural and food imports, and also export and investment restrictions on 25 American companies. So yesterday, US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth claimed that the US was ready for any kind of war during a segment on Fox News. Hegseth stated that the US does not seek war with China, but will rebuild its military and prepare for conflict. Today, a reporter asked the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson to comment on Hegseth's statement, and the spokesman completely changed his tone and responded, "Whether it is a tariff war, a trade war, cold war, or hot war, none should be fought, nor can anyone win." Chinese spokesperson now doesn't have the freedom to improvise at the press conference. Everything they say on these major relations, on these major global issues, must be previously approved. So the shift in tone suggests internal pushback and probably factional politics, possibly from Xi Jinping's adversaries and even the Chinese military. The wolf warrior diplomacy was coined during Xi Jinping's time. However, it's being reported that the Chinese military has clashed with the foreign ministry over the practice of wolf warrior diplomacy. I just want to make sure people can hear me. People can hear me? Yes? Okay, I think I'm clear. Loud and clear? No? Yes? Loud and clear. Yes. Okay. From Kevin Robb. Well, thank you. Well, from a lot of people, from Daniel A. John Panozzo. Okay, good. I just want to make sure. Sometimes I can go on and without. All right, good. Well, everyone says that I'm loud and clear. Okay, so that's that change. Let me go back to talk about the fight between the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The South China Morning Post had a piece in August 2021 about the fight, about the struggle between the two ministries. It cited an insider within the CCP and reported that China's Foreign Ministry and Ministry of National Defense have been engaged in overt and covert struggles. While the Foreign Ministry has been aggressive in rhetoric, making enemies worldwide, the military was upset with the consequences. According to the report, when democratic nations were enraged by the wolf warrior diplomacy and China found itself on the brink of war, the Chinese military refused to fight a multinational coalition in a war provoked by the country's aggressive diplomats. The report was more than 3 years ago. So you wonder how many people share that view. What I want to say is, in a country where truth is suppressed and political correctness dominates, everyone is forced to act. And the best actor of all is China's top leader. In a system without any political transparency, their acting or their actings follow patterns and are subject to interpretation. Beijing is now busy with one of its biggest annual events, the concurrent sessions of the National People's Congress and the CPPCC's annual conference. They're commonly referred to as the two sessions. Thousands of representatives from across China have gathered in Beijing, where the city is under strict surveillance. Ordinary people aren't even allowed near the Great Hall of the People or Tiananmen Square. At the two sessions, top CCP officials and delegates showcased their superb acting skills, putting on a grand political performance. In China, if you want to succeed in politics, you must be a good actor. Speaking your mind or from your heart, speaking your mind from your heart is committing political suicide. And that's why, this problem is common. That's why a lot of Chinese people, a lot of Chinese living in mainland China, including myself, when they first come to the West, they have a problem of expressing themselves because they're not used to that. They have a hard time speaking their mind and speak straight from their heart because it's not something that we're used to. It would take us a long time. And sometimes it's over certain subjects and not other subjects. Anyways, you've heard the political rumor that came from Beijing, suggesting that Hu Jintao, Wen Jiabao, and Hu Deping, the three-party elders born in 1942, have taken actual control over the CCP's leadership, and that Xi Jinping's resignation or stepping down is just a matter of official announcement. Political observers like myself hope to find some clues in the public proceedings of the two sessions. So let's first examine the power dynamics within the PLA. So on March 3rd, CMC Vice Chairman Zhang Youxia led the PLA and the armed police delegation to attend the two sessions. State media CCTV footage showed the unexpected presence of PLA Army Commander Li Qiang. Let me share with you a picture. Where did the picture go? Oh, here we go. Yeah, so here's the delegation from the PLA. Okay, so Li Qiang is the man on the far left. Okay, so I'll talk about the other three men here in a little while. So he reappeared. People saw him from the CCTV footage. Now, general, he is the army commander. He's a general. He had been absent from public view and was suspected of having been purged. The general's reappearance suggests that he has been spared. General Li is an ally of Zhang Youxia, and he's not a Xi Jinping's man. He is one of the 4 senior military leaders who had gone missing together since the end of 2024 from key events. Their disappearance was suspected to have tied to the downfall of Admiral Miao Hua, who headed the political department of the CMC and also was the head of HR within the military. The other 3 generals are showing here. Political commissar of the PLA Army, General Qin Shutong, and then political commissar of the PLA Navy, Admiral Yuan Huazhi, who is the man on the far right in the Navy uniform, and then the commander of the armed police force, General Wang Chunning. So these are all senior PLA leaders within, right? I mean, they're the political commissar and the commander of the army, of the armed police force, and also of the Navy. So they went missing together at the end of last year. Now one reappeared, right? And the other 3 are still missing. People did not spot them at the 2 sessions. Now, what's interesting is the one who reappeared is an ally of Zhang Youxia, while the 3 who are still missing are allies of Xi Jinping. So the fact that Zhang Youxia's ally is back, but 3 of Xi Jinping's allies are not, has further validated the widespread rumor that Zhang Youxia is now the actual leader of the PLA and Xi Jinping is only a figurehead. However, Zhang Youxia's relationship with the other CMC vice chairman, He Weidong, who is a Xi Jinping ally, is interesting. During the 2 sessions, He Weidong, who ranks lower than Zhang Youxia in the military, was given higher precedence and sat closer to the center of the stage. Do I have a picture of the dynamic duo? There they are. But on the following day, when the 2 vice chairmen both attended a military delegation discussion session, Xinhua News showed that Zhang Youxia spoke before He Weidong did. So some say the CCP deliberately lowered Zhang Youxia's seating precedence to hide Xi Jinping's losing control of the military. Others say their seats were arranged alphabetically by Cai Qi, who wants to sideline Zhang Youxia. Most interestingly, people also noticed that, now let me show you a picture. I don't know if you see something interesting from this picture. People noticed that some PLA delegates appeared uncomfortable being filmed at the conference. Here's a picture showing an officer using his hat to cover the face. This is weird, as these delegates should feel proud being selected to attend the party's highly celebrated annual event. So why did the man cover his face? As if he's ashamed to be associated with the meeting and doesn't want people to see him. So this suggests that the Chinese military remains in turmoil. If loyalty isn't a widespread problem, then some officers feel nervous when being in the spotlight. People also notice that the officials aren't as enthusiastic as before toward Xi Jinping. Let me show you another picture. Yeah. At the opening ceremonies of the session, attendees were required to be seated first, waiting for the Politburo Standing Committee members to enter while receiving applauses. Likewise, at the end of the session, the Standing Committee members exit first, right? They exited first, with the audience clapping while looking on. This is how the top leadership asserts its authority. And this is done at every conference, of its kind. This time, something has changed. If you look closely, while Xi Jinping continued to walk out at the front, right? This picture was taken when he leaves or left. Some officials did not clap as Xi Jinping walked past them. More notably, many attendees were not even looking at him. Rather, they were looking at the people walking behind Xi Jinping. This deliberate or maybe subconscious act of ignoring Xi Jinping raises speculation. Is it because they're all aware that Xi is not going to be around for very long? It would be impossible in the past. If you look at past events, officials' eyes would be deadlocked on Xi Jinping as he moved across the stage. So this change seems to add credibility to the rumor that about his imminent stepping down. And then something else I want to share with you. This picture is worth 1,000 words. Okay, so Li Qiang's demeanor changed. At this year's 2 sessions, the Premier Li Qiang no longer behaved submissively in front of Xi Jinping as he did before. His interaction with Xi Jinping appeared more equal. They're on equal footing. And he isn't or wasn't as nervous as before, and even appeared in a good mood, as this picture showed. However, Cai Qi looked miserable. He sat next to Li Qiang. He looked down and maintained a stern expression throughout the event. People have been talking about the power struggles between the two. These two don't get along. But Cai Qi previously held the upper hand due to his close relationship with Xi Jinping. But as Xi's influence weakened, Cai Qi is struggling to maintain his status. By the way, he's rumored to be in poor health, as his job has taken a toll on him. I don't know if that's an excuse to explain. It could be a cover-up rumor to explain why he's going to step down. But the reason they gave to explain his stepping down is his health. They say that as Xi Jinping's chief steward and housekeeper of the central leadership, he has been overworking because he's in charge of Xi Jinping's security. He runs his office, accompanies him everywhere he goes, and he's not allowed to make any mistake. And so it's said that he has been totally stressed out and is in poor health. And Xi Jinping is looking for someone to replace him, because the fear is that if he isn't replaced, the man may die in his position. Now, when I heard this, I think it may be true. He may not be in his best health, he may not be in his best condition, but I think it could also be an excuse and an intended rumor to spread to explain his imminent stepping down. Because, if you look at it, Cai Qi is going to step down. But maybe health is just an excuse that they're using. Because if the rumor is that Cai Qi will step down, then automatically people would know that Xi Jinping's power is gone. Now, using his health as an excuse, maybe, people wouldn't, put so much weight on that. Now, the Premier Li Qiang delivered a government work report at the National People's Congress. Was it yesterday? Maybe 2 days ago. Now, Beijing has planned to increase its fiscal deficit to be around 4% of the GDP, an increase of 1% point from the previous year. I mean, although it sounds like it's 1% of GDP, but although it sounds it's an increase from 3% to 4%, actually, if you look at the total deficit in value, it's a 40% increase. So the total deficit is set at 5.66 trillion yuan, which is 40% or 1.6 trillion yuan more than last year. So how is Beijing going to manage the debt? The regime plans to issue 1.3 trillion yuan in ultra-long-term special bonds, an increase of 300 billion yuan, or 23% from last year. Additionally, 500 billion yuan special bonds will be issued to support large state-owned commercial banks. The banks need help. Also, Beijing will allocate 4.4 trillion yuan in local government special bonds. And this amount is 12.8% or 500 billion yuan more than last year. So if you look at it, the central government, the local government, and large state-owned banks are all running out of money, and they're seriously in debt. Despite the situation, Beijing's military spending is growing. So according to the Chinese Ministry of Finance, China's defense budget for the year is 1.78 trillion yuan. It's a 7.2% year-over-year increase. And this 7.2% is the same growth rate as last year. And this marks the fourth consecutive year since 2022 that China's military budget has grown by more than 7%. This figure doesn't include the hidden military expenditures. Foreign experts generally believe that China's actual defense spending is 1.4 times the publicly announced number. So if you do the math, it's about 2.5 trillion yuan. When converted into dollars, it's about 341 billion dollars, $341 billion, which is less than half of U.S. defense budget at which is over $800 billion. But I think the Chinese number is still too low, as much of China's military expenses are hidden in the civilian hybrid programs. So people are saying that China's growth in military spending in 2025 surpasses its economic growth, right? If there's any economic growth this year. So this indicates Beijing's priority is still in military expansion, despite the economic hardship. It suggests that China's strategic ambitions have not slowed down a bit by the dire economic condition. And I think the next quote I'm going to read you is telling. On March 4th, the head of CPPCC, who is Wang Huning, right, the Xi Jinping's political makeup artist, when addressing the CPPCC delegates, he stated that this year the CPPCC will assist the CCP and the government with publicity work that promotes CCP policies, which will guide the public to positively and dialectically view the economic situation and development trends, amplifying the party's main narrative while spreading positive energy. Basically, what it's saying is that the propaganda machine will crank up its volume to guide people or force people into accepting their dire economic situation and still be grateful to their government. So that's CCP's solution to the economy. Instead of really addressing the economy, it's going to spend the money, hiring foreign social media influencers to go to China to do great stories about China, to sing praises to the CCP, and then guide people into accepting their economic situation. On the first day of the two sessions, an open letter addressed to all Chinese citizens posted on the social media platform X, and it sparked widespread attention. It's authored by a man from Henan. His name is Li Qiang. The letter calls for the overthrow of the CCP's dictatorship and the reckoning of Xi Jinping's crimes. And this was posted. Oh yeah, there was I want to show you this. There was a rare footage from CCTV showing an official yarning. People are saying that this guy will be in trouble because you're not supposed to yarn. You're not allowed. It's a political mistake. But this man was yarning in front of. He didn't do that in front of the camera. He wasn't aware the camera was right next to him. But it's a big no-no. Here's the security. I want to show you. Oh, here's the open letter. Yeah. So this open letter basically calling the Chinese people to overthrow the CCP's dictatorship. It was posted by the account Human Rights and Current Affairs. And at the end of the letter, it states that both the Chinese and English versions have been sent to over 10 international media outlets to draw global attention to the matter. Now, obviously, there's no mainstream media coverage. I tried to look up who this man is, and he had previously petitioned to the local officials in Henan over the restricted travel of his son. His son tried to go to Thailand, but he was intercepted at the airport in Shanghai and not allowed to leave China. So the father petitioned to the local official. And some people say the man now lives in Singapore, and that's why he's speaking out. So let me answer a question. So people say, what's next in Sino-US relations? I think for the first few weeks during Trump's second term, the CCP has stayed low-key and avoided direct confrontations because they want to grasp, Trump's strategy. However, now I think it has settled on a strategy in countering the United States. Ukraine has repeatedly waved the olive branch to Beijing, and the CCP now wants to get involved in the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire. I saw videos today showing Ukrainians living in the US making an appeal outside the Chinese embassy, asking China to be involved in the ceasefire negotiation. I thought it's interesting. And also, after the French President Emmanuel Macron's strong statement recently on confronting the Russian threat with or without the US, the Chinese immediately saw an opportunity to jump in. China's top European affairs diplomat, his name is Lu Qiang, who was formerly the ambassador to France, who was a famous wolf warrior. And this man echoed Macron's words by saying that Europe shouldn't leave European affairs to the United States. And he was basically singing praises to the Ukrainians. So it sounds like China will now side with Ukraine and France, and maybe even the rest of the Europe, and then counter the United States. I think China's goal, I don't think China is generally interested in seeing a real ceasefire. I think the CCP's goal is to interfere in any ceasefire efforts by making it more difficult and complicated. But this will, without a doubt, expedite Trump's trade war 2.0 and the decoupling efforts between the two most powerful nations across the Pacific. So I think this is a latest development that just happened, I think, yesterday or in the past no more than 48 hours. I think you will see China being more and more visible in the European affair, in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So that's all I have. If it makes sense to you. I primarily just want to show you where the US-China relations, where it stands right now, and also give you kind of a highlight overview of the two sessions, because I think they're very telling. I think a lot of it is acting. I think Xi Jinping's power, without a doubt, has been reduced, weakened, but his team, and even the opposition are working very hard, putting on act, trying to show that he is still in power, because it's in their best interest to maintain this an image of a status quo before they're ready to announce anything. So that's all I have. All right, let me see what people have for me. This is Li working a little under the weather. But I'm glad that I was able to pull all these information for you. I think it's worth my time, and hopefully worth your time as well. All right, so here's a question forwarded by Chris. Chris, did you forward any questions? Nope, nothing. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Well, there's some dynamic exchanges going on here. All right. All right. Nothing. All right. So, oh, here's a question forwarded by Chris from Mystical Stab Artist. If PRC breaks up into several independent states, do you think one will form union with Taiwan? I do not believe the PRC will break up into several independent states. I think that idea, I do not think it will happen. I gave us a couple of reasons. I mean, culturally, it's hard it's almost impossible because people are, I mean, how are they going to divide the country? People from, let's say, Shanghai or Fujian, they may have family members living in the Northeast or in the Western region. So people are, it's almost like the United States. You can't, it's very diverse. So you can't really, how are you gonna divide the country? It's impossible. I do not think that will happen. I think the chances for that to happen is very small. Okay, Julius, you said that if Chinese people learn about their cultural heritage, they would stop being communists. Do you have any books where I can learn about their heritage? It's a very good question. Unfortunately, the CCP, since they came to power, changed the Chinese history books, changed our textbooks. So I think the best way to learn Chinese history is use the books from Taiwan. That's one thing. So I wouldn't trust any, and even the cultural books published by the modern day China is questionable. I mean, look at it. The CCP changed the Chinese language. They use simplified Chinese font, which is very painful for many Chinese to accept because I changed the inner meaning. Chinese language is meaningful because of the structure of the characters. So when you change the structure of the characters, you really change the meaning, right? Like the word love has a heart in the center of the character. And in the simplified font, the heart is removed. So love is without a heart. And that's not just a matter of changing the font, it really changed the meaning of our culture. And that's significant. So when you say books, without mentioning any specific books, I would say I would trust that the books authored or published in Taiwan are more authentic or more original or more accurate to than the ones published in mainland China. And also, secondly, I don't think it's easy. I think there has to be a global effort by Chinese, by ethnic Chinese from all over the world to come together to revive their culture, because it's not just the issue of reading a few books. Now, Taiwan is very progressive. The Taiwanese culture today is very progressive. And so I think there needs to be a revival effort around the world within the Chinese community to conscientiously bring back their tradition. I mean, they have to rediscover that together. So that's what I always say. The performing arts group, Shenyun Performing Arts, they're doing an incredible job, because what they're doing, if you have seen their show, if you have seen their performances, they took stories or historical anecdotes from throughout Chinese history and put it on stage with live music. I mean, their orchestration is if you love classical music, you would enjoy their music, because the Chinese music tradition is 5-note, whereas Western music tradition is based on 7-note, right? And so how do you combine the two? So their orchestra includes both Chinese instruments like erhu, pipa. So it has the sensitivity of Chinese melodies and music, but it has the power and the strength of a Western orchestration. So we actually, see that kind of artistic presentation. It's very impressive. It makes you proud as a Chinese person, and also make you proud as a Chinese American, because Shenyun is American company essentially. So I think it's ironic, the revival of Chinese culture starts with the American company. It's actually made in America, right? I mean, the saying is what? The most authentic Chinese show or the most authentic Chinese performance is made in America. That tells you something. But I think that effort is not enough. So the Chinese, when the 800 million Chinese realize that they need to be reunited with their cultural heritage, that will start this cultural revival effort. So it seriously needs to be done. Otherwise, if you remove the CCP, you still have 800 million Chinese or whatever, 900 million Chinese think like the CCP or have the CCP mentality. And I think that's probably what happened to Russia. I mean, the former communist countries, when their communist party or regime disintegrate, the West didn't realize that they have a responsibility to help these people in those countries to, remove the indoctrination of communism and really welcome them into the democratic world. Otherwise, you just get rid of the CCP, but everyone behaves and thinks like a communist. What difference does that make? It makes no difference. And then you may have another dictator, right? So I think that's the lesson we learned in Russia. And I think we should prevent the same mistake from happening in China. So culture is very important. Brian Cow. Well, thank you, Brian. All right. Somebody asked me, what's your view on the PLA Navy sailing around Australia and doing live fire drilling without giving notice to Australia? I have said that it's you will see the PLA sporadic, as chaotic as the regime is politically. We will see sporadic, egregious behavior by its military in other parts of the world. The purpose is to distract, because if they're too quiet, then we're wondering what's happening with the power struggle in the PLA. So they will, from time to time, doing crazy things in South China Sea. It used to be across the Indian border. They would do that, just to kind of deflect attention elsewhere. I think to cover up for the fact that Xi Jinping's power is gone. I think that's why they did it. Netflix foreign. Do many mainlanders only know simplified? I ask because most Chinese movies have both traditional and simplified. So I wonder how successful simplified has been in implementation. Mainland Chinese is all simplified. We see most Chinese movies, but not the mainland Chinese movies. If you go to China, I think the font is simplified, right? Here's a question from Daniel A. Lei. What year do you think China will try to invade Taiwan or have a successful government crackdown by endorsing candidates and changing law? I think the CCP is very careful not to invade Taiwan because it's not going to end well. It will topple the regime, but it's doing everything it can to infiltrate the Taiwanese society by influencing Taiwanese politics. Right? I mean, same thing. Take a look at South Korea. Oh, by the way, I have a major announcement to make. Speaking of South Korea, My, I don't know, my fourth lace looking glass video was released at 9 o'clock tonight. You're gonna love it because it talks about the unluckiest presidential palace in the world. And it is South Korea. South Korean presidential palace is the one with the worst feng shui. And it explains how unlucky South Korean presidents have been. So Chris has copied the link in the description. So if you can take a look, help me with the algorithm, I'd appreciate it. But it's fascinating. Yeah. Okay. All right. I almost forgot. Let's move on. Okay. All right. I already answered that question. How about the minority groups when CCP collapses? Will the new China let these minority groups have autonomous state? Like, no. I think the new China will not allow independence. And it's also very difficult. The Han Chinese, the ethnic Han, has infiltrated regions like Tibet, Inner Mongolia, and Xinjiang heavily, especially in the capital city. Most of the political influence and the economic political power in the region stay in the capital city of the province. And those elites, the local elites, have already been highly influenced and under control by the Han. So it's very difficult for them to get together and declare independence. The CCP has been doing everything it can to prevent this from happening in the last decades. So it's very difficult. Nor do people, maybe at local level, people still have the will, but it's difficult for them to organize, right? To get together and organize. Okay, all right. Let's see. All right, here's a question. Is that for? Oh yeah, Chris just copied the link. Excellent. Here's the link. Here's a question forwarded by Chris from Mint Creative Gifts and Ideas. May I know if it's safe to deposit our money in Bank of China outside China should CCP collapse? Since it's a state bank, I wouldn't. Why? I mean, if you're outside China, you have so many options to choose a bank. Why would you choose a Chinese bank? I mean, if you have money left there, that you brought from China, then I understand. But if you have, I wouldn't. I mean, if you're outside China, I would move the money. I would take the money out and put it in other banks. Because first of all, your personal information is with the CCP. That's not safe. And they understand your purchasing behavior. They know a lot about you. Why? Why do you give that information away to the CCP? Right? Somebody asked me, do you think reunification with Taiwan will fade after Xi Jinping being out power? Well, no, I don't think reunification will fade. I think the chances, when China becomes democratic, and the chances to be reunited with Taiwan is greater, and the ROC government has a chance to return to China, right? It could be an opposition party and return to China because it once ruled China. So I think the chances will be higher. I think it will be a peaceful reunification. I think the Chinese people will welcome that, right? I think the Chinese people will give the Taiwanese government a chance to run their country. I mean, anyone would do a better job than the CCP, so why not? Okay, Kent Burda. Well, thank you, Kent. All right, that seems to be all. I reached the bottom of the questions. I thank you for joining me. I need to go take a sip of water and go to bed. Thank you very much. I'll see you over the weekend. Bye-bye.